Ready to roll. Okay, good to see everybody here tonight. We are again the exciting adventures of the children of Israel, and they are now in Babylon. And we ended up in 39. It was like around 700 BC, and then from 39 to chapter 40, you jump about 120 years into the future, and so that's where we're at right now. And they have gotten their God worked with, when you think about it, God worked with them for about 1,000 years, from 1500 now, with the patience of God is unbelievable. And finally, okay, that's it. But what we see starting in chapter 40, he's not done with them. He's not done with us. And all these verses we're going to look at tonight are really encouraging, and they're talking to us. They're talking to the people in the kingdom, and also there are like those who were listening back then, the remnant. They didn't apply to them too, but they're talking to us. It's all about us. And so, if you'll bow with me, we'll start with a prayer. Our gracious Father, we're so thankful for this night, for this time, and I pray help in this class, Father, to help everyone here see your glory, your greatness, and see your care and concern for us, Father, and how much you want to help us in our lives, to bring us to be people who are of use to you, Father, and what you're willing to do for us. Help us to see this, and help us to see just how right it is to strive to serve you instead of living in this life, looking at the worldly things that there are to be had. Father, help us to see the great joy that there can be in serving you, and the great joy that we can have one day in heaven. And just be with us tonight as we study these things. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so as I said, they're now this big reversal. This is probably a huge reversal here of their fates, of what's happened. And what we're being introduced here, okay, God has shown through chapters 1 through 39, he's shown that he can be trusted, and not to trust anything else, but he can be trusted. And so I think a lot of people, they believe that, yeah, it seems like we can trust God. But what is going to really motivate us to trust him, And that's what we're introduced to from, there's four suffering servants that are introduced. That is going to be what is going to motivate us. The death of Jesus, the suffering of Jesus, what he did for us is what will now motivate us to not only trust in him, but to serve him because of what we realize that he's done for us. I want to look at just for a minute here a couple of things of, like, this is, Babylon still exists, the country of Babylon, or the city, and this is about 50 miles south of Baghdad in Iraq. And it's still there, and I guess there's a lot of problems right now, or there are, get it over here, with trying to keep it preserved. I think things are fading away, and Iraq isn't the greatest about, doing it, but there's a lot of efforts into to preserve it and things like that. And here's a recreation of the gate, the Ishtar gate that went into Babylon. It's about 50 feet tall, and the walls, they said, were something like 23 feet thick, and they had more than one of them. And it just, the building of Nebuchadnezzar, he was phenomenal. Probably had his palace, they said, is probably one of the most beautiful that's ever been built in time. And the amount of gold, all the stuff that was put in the city was fabulously wealthy. This here looks like me, like Tiglath-Pileser. The thing said this is Nebuchadnezzar, but I don't know. I didn't get a good picture of him. But this here is a picture of the temple of Marduk, okay? And this is just the, is that the temple of Marduk there? Yeah. Just I could be wrong. Is it the next one? That's the Marduk. This here, go back. This here is the interest, and you can see on these animals that they have, that they used here, like the what was it, the bull was the big one, and then this here thing here, a lion is another one that we'll see in there that was huge, and there was a god for that, and a god for the lion, and then this is Marduk, a symbol of the Marduk. And if you look at it, you can't see it very well, but his head is a snake. The tail is a snake. The front legs are lion paws, and the back legs are like an eagle's. and that's somehow representative, a lot of characteristic of their god, Marduk. But the body looks like a dash hound, or something. I don't know, it's just long and skinny like that. It's kind of weird, but that was the big one for them. But that's on and this blue stone that you see up there was specially made. They didn't have stones and stuff to pull out of the creeks. They had to make bricks. And when they made the bricks, they were able to make them just shiny blue. They said it really glistened in the sun, and they had some kind of process that they still haven't fully figured out how they did it. They mixed copper or did some other things to make it the shiny blue, and it's really fabulously done. And this is the entrance to the Temple of Marduk, and this is just the front entrance. There's even a bigger the temple on the back than this. It was just amazing what he did. And these, of course, the animals that were on the side of that. But this is, how would you like to have this job? They're sorting out the bricks that they found at the site in Babylon there at that site, and they're sorting them out. I think this was in 1920. I don't know how far they've gotten, but they're sorting out all these bricks and trying to reconstruct things. And I think this was taken in 1937 or something, but the ruins of the city of Babylon are still there. And this, from the opening gate of Babylon, there's this half a mile long, they call it the processional way or something. Let's see. Here it's like a half a mile long that goes to the temple. And all along the side here, you have lions. That's where all the lions are found in there. But every year they had a big, Danny probably talked about it before, all the gods were brought and they would march them down this thing. And then the god Marduk would go through there. It was a big, big thing, the religious festivals that they had. And this is just a book a guy wrote about all those things. Those are the lines that were all along that way, that processional way. And then there's a bunch of these cylinders around that Nebuchadnezzar left that he mostly explains all the building that he did and what he did in other countries and stuff like that. They really like to talk about themselves. He bragged a lot. And this here is Nabonius. He's the guy that was, I think it's Nebuchadnezzar's son that came after him after Nebuchadnezzar died. Nebuchadnezzar reigned only 46 years or something like that. And the whole Neo-Babylonian kingdom lasted about 70 years. And it was just fabulous what they did. They were just amazing, productive people. But then when Nebuchadnezzar, they went downhill. This guy, everything just went downhill from there until finally the Persians came in and took over the city. Does anyone remember how the Persians took the city? This nearly, impregnable. Daniel?
I think they came in through the aqueducts, if I remember. I might be wrong.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. Jennifer?
It's something like, they did cut through a waterway. Did he build up a path into the city through a waterway?
Yes. The river Euphrates actually went right through the center of the city, and they diverted the Euphrates River and went in that way, and defeated the Babylonians. All right, let's see. Okay, so, but they were very, very smart people. I read other articles on them that talked about the things that they're doing surgically and scientifically, all the things, and they discovered things, and there's scientific discoveries credited to them. And this one article said that if these people were allowed to continue, there would have been no limit what they could do. They were very, very smart people, and but Nebuchadnezzar is an interesting guy. He was very braggadocious, but Danny, what happened to him? You talked about that. And no, but Nebuchadnezzar, what his fate, what happened to him and Daniel? If you remember how good. Yes. Yeah, and I'd be. Yeah, he was like an animal in the field. God really humbled him, and I'd be curious as to how Nebuchadnezzar turned out. I don't remember, Dan, if it talks about the aftermath of that, how he turned out, but he bragged a lot about his stuff, but God really humbled him.
That's the section where Nebuchadnezzar actually wrote, right? I think in Daniel 4 where he actually wrote a section, and it's in Aramaic right there.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Let me tell you about what God did to me.
Ah, neat. I didn't know that. That's neat. Anyway. Okay, but last week we ended up here, and We have 7 more classes left. Yay! And and we have 26 chapters to do. So I'm going to figure out how to, like, we'll just have to skip some things and do that, but we'll try to get through it. But, you know, we've trudged through a lot of stuff. But this stuff we're looking at tonight is really good stuff. I mean, it's really encouraging to us. It's like there's no gloom and doom, you know, how it was in the first 39 chapters. You know, now it is very encouraging stuff. And just we see just how amazing God is. But we ended up here last week where Peter then explains this all flesh is like the grass. And does anybody have any idea why in chapter 40, you know, we have the first voice is John the Baptist crying in the, or, you know, or comfort my people, that voice. And then there's another voice here that says a voice cries in the wilderness, and that's John the Baptist. And then right after that, another voice says, all flesh is like grass. You know, why do you think that's here? Why do you think that passage is here? That's interesting to throw that all flesh is like the grass. He's talking about, you know, comfort my people, la-da-da. But then all flesh is all beauty like the flower of the field. You know, why does it have that? Why is that in there, you think? We see here in Peter, Morgan? Yeah.
It seems to be a contrast of verse 23 when it says, you've been born again, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable. He says, because all flesh is like grass, you're very temporary beings, you know, but you put on the imperishable.
Absolutely, yeah. You made a choice. Darlene, were you going to say something? Okay. Yeah, Danny?
I was going to say, just in context of Isaiah, you know, how could this be comfort, you know? Maybe just the fact that we're in Babylon and all that kind of stuff, that hey, this is Babylon's going to pass, but the things of God, that's what's going to last.
I think that's in it too. And all 1 through 39, they were worthy of this passage. You know, and I think, but the main point for us, all of us fall into this. All of us are like, you know, all our glories like the flower of the grass. You know, the flower falls. We are, you know, unworthy. We fall short, but that's not the last word. God, you know, God has, this is the word of the good news that's preached to us, you know. And I think that's what God is trying to show them is that, yes, this is how you really, this is your reality. This is who you are, but this is what I'm going to do, what he goes on to talk about. It's not, I'm not done with you. I'm going to make something of you. So let's see. So then there's this passage here. Let me get caught up here. Somebody, Rodney, would you mind reading that there?
Go on up to a high mountain of Zion, herald of good news. Lift up your voice with strength, O Jerusalem, herald of good news. Lift it up, fear not. Say to the cities of Judah, behold your God. Behold, the Lord God comes with might, and his arm rules for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his recompense before him. He will tend his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom and gently lead those that are with young.
Okay, so what is he telling Zion to do? In essence, telling us to do. Yeah, go shout this news. This is great news. You know, that's our job. Do that. And then he goes on to talk about, like, what kind of picture do you get of God? Is he like this mean, destructive God? Or what kind of picture do you get from this? Of who he is, of how he looks upon us?
Like a caring father.
Absolutely. You know, the shepherd, it's like, I read even Brent Kirschenwald said he grew up learning to be terrified of God. Like God was this, any movie made, God was going to destroy him. For some reason, he had that in his head. And I think the world has that picture of God, and it's just so opposite of who he is. And I think what we're going to see here is that is not the way it is. When you read what he says, you know, he comes with might. His arm rules for him. Behold, his reward is with him. And he's coming to us with this reward to give us this great gift. his recompense before him, and then how he will treat us. And I think that's what gets me. He will tend his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom and gently lead those who are with young. It's like what he wants to do in our lives is absolutely amazing. And I think a lot of times Christians, we can have this thing like, oh, God just is not happy with me. That is just not for us. God is so concerned about your life, and he wants to be part of your life, to walk with you, to help you become a person that he can use. And that's why we go through trials and all these things, because he's bringing us, as long as we have our trust, that's the big thing, our trust in God, he's going to bring us out, and we'll come out of it on the good end of things, if we just keep our trust in him. And that's what he promises, because he cares for us. He truly cares for us. This is an amazing God, amazing picture of God here. We better move along. I thought what Brent said here, he said, spiritual comfort cannot truly exist without an adequate understanding of the character of God. We must see his tender care toward his people. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort. Get on a mountain and shout it from the rooftops that God is the God of all comfort, who gathers his sheep like a shepherd and carries them in his bosom. That's our role. That's what we're here to do. All right, now the question would be like, okay, can God do this? Can God bring this people to this point? And so what he's showing us is, yes, I can do this. And this should be obvious to us who God is. But we're going to look through God's eyes. This is how God sees the world and sees what's going on. And it's just amazing how people don't see this, but we should. John, would you mind reading that page there?
Who has measured the water in the hollow of his hand, and marked off the heaven from the span, enclosed the dust of the earth in a measure, and weighed the mountains in scales, and the hills in a balance? Who has measured the Spirit of the Lord? Or what man shows him his counsel? Whom did he consult, and who made him understand? Who taught him the path of justice, and taught him knowledge, and showed him the way of understanding?
Even the Jews who were in captivity in Babylon, the god Marduk had to consult with another god at times, the god of all wisdom or something, But here, this is the massive and wise power of God. Even the Greek and Roman gods, they consulted with each other, to answer all these questions. Let's go to see. I think I have one here. Anybody recognize this mountain? Everest, very good, yeah. Now, what I was going to do is guess how much this weighs. If you can tell me how much this weighs, I'll make you God. See, that's amazing, the profound thing, like the power of him, like what does it say, in the span of his hand? How does he say? He weighs a mountain in scales and the hills in a balance, It's just boggling to think about the massive nature and power of God. All right, let's see. I'll read this one here. Let's see. Behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket. They are counted as the dust on the scales. Behold, he takes up the coastlands like fine dust. Lebanon will not suffice for fuel, and nor are its beasts enough for a burnt offering. All the nations are as nothing before him. They are counted by him as less than nothing in emptiness. Have you ever thought about that when you fly and you look down on cities and things like that? And I just marvel that I think about that God knows what every single person there is thinking, and what we're going to get into is that is nothing for him, to know that, it's hard for us to imagine, and sometimes we think that, well, God gets tired. How can he keep up? He doesn't. And we're going to see later on how that is not the case. Let's see. Any comments, questions before I move on here? I was looking for this is a cedar of Lebanon. It's supposed to be from that or a tree of that species or whatever. But they're magnificent trees. It said they grow in a dry climate, stuff like that. But I always pictured them as like a tall, singular tree. But I don't know. Anybody know anything about the real cedars of Lebanon? But they were a big commodity back then, known for their beauty and I guess what you could build with and stuff. All right, let's see. And this is an interesting passage here. Danny, would you mind reading that?
To whom then will you liken God? Or what likeness compare with him? An idol? A craftsman casts it, and the goldsmith overlays it with gold, and casts for it silver chains. He who is too impoverished for an offering chooses wood that will not rot. He seeks out a skillful craftsman and set up an idol that will not move.
Anybody make any applications from this? You see what man does here?
Man creates his own gods.
Absolutely.
Liken them to, he's going, okay, how are you going to liken those to God who created everything, and then you create your own, and if you don't have any money, then you're just going to go with wood or.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping you. You can still make a god. What do you think of our gods today? They fashion physical idols. What do you think our gods are today? What do you think, Tom? Money, yeah. Can it talk to you? Can it answer? Maybe sometimes answer your prayers. I don't know. But yeah, like what is it that's in accounts of you? You know, what else is it like? Just I don't know, fame, fortune. You know, those are the gods of today. Those kind of things, and not that any of those things are wrong per se, because God blesses us with stuff. But it's just what we make of them. All right. Let's see. Let's move along here. And then this passage here, Ken, would you mind reading this for us?
Do you not know, do you not hear? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who set the moon to circle on the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain, and spreads them like a tent to dwell in, who brings princes to nothing, and makes the rulers of earth as emptiness. Scarcely are they planted, scarcely sown, scarcely has their stem taken root in earth. When he blows on them, and they wither, and the tempest carries them off like stone.
Okay. Yeah, this is just stuff that we should know. It should be, you know, like intuitive to man, but he has to say this so that we know that he can do all these things, you know. But he shouldn't have to say this. But how would you retranslate that? Do you not know? Do you not hear? How might be another way to say that?
Look around. Can't you see?
Duh. Yeah.
Can't you hear something?
Yes.
Happening?
Yes. I know, Tom, it's just so obvious and stuff, but yet it's a world full of people that never look up, never look around. You know, do you not understand what God is all about? Danny?
Brought up Daniel, talking about Babylon and that kind of stuff. Makes you really think, you know, you can just picture Daniel, like if he's taken when he was young, and he's reading Jeremiah, he's reading Isaiah,
Yeah.
how being in sort of the belly of the beast right there, right, in the lion's den for being in Babylon, and reading things like this and knowing that he doesn't look like it in life, but God's in control. But he really is.
Yeah. Yeah, Daniel sure is a great example. I read a comment today about him that somebody said another thing, that in Babylon it was said that all the women were at one point or another in their lives cult prostitutes. That's how they operated in that thing. And Daniel was around in that environment and stuff, and so just a tribute to his faithfulness and stuff. All right, let's see. This next passage is pretty neat here. Daniel, would you mind reading that?
To whom then will you compare me, that I should be like him, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes on high and see, who created these? He who brings out their host by number, calling them all by name, by the greatness of his might, and because he is strong in power, not one is missing.
What do you think about that passage? It's a pretty cool passage. Anybody ever called out a star? That's quite amazing power, you know. And somebody said, when I get to heaven, I'd like to see God do that, you know. That's just like, again, it's just profound to think about his power and how much he's capable of doing. And some of the things in here, like, is this a part that has the circle of the earth? I didn't talk about that, the circle of the earth, yeah, on that 22 there. We have a relative that is a flat earth person, unbelievably, but he believes that the earth is flat. But when I first looked at this, I said, oh, well, has he read this passage? It's above the circle of the earth. But do you think that this is, I know the Bible's not trying to say that the earth is round, but what do you think this passage, what would you remark about this passage?
It doesn't matter where you are on earth, God is going to see peace.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I bet he would say, if I read this scripture to him, I don't know that this is trying to say that the earth is round. I don't know. But he thinks that the earth is flat, a circular round. That's what he would probably say in answer to that. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting thing. And another thing about all this is that I think not to get too caught up in things like, well, global warming the earth is going to be destroyed because of global warming or any of those things. I think God is in control of these things, and he'll make that happen, and we don't have to worry about those things. But at any rate, I think that's a beautiful passage on who God is. All right. Now, I think this is a neat passage here, and I'll read this one. It says, "Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God?" What is he saying there? This is nice. God notices this about people. What is he saying? Imagine yourself being, in Babylon. Go ahead, Rodney.
Well, that idea, does he see my fate, or, is he really seeing what's going on with us here?
Yeah. And they could be feeling that, because here they are taken in exile by Nebuchadnezzar and stuff, and they're thinking that, so I can see how this is very helpful to them. But that's to us too, Rich.
Now, the second part of that is, my right is disregarded by God. Is that them saying, has he forgotten we're his people?
Yeah, that's the idea. And, and God is just saying that's ridiculous for us to think that way. It's not the way he is. At any rate. And then, have you not known, have you not heard? You should know this. The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. And see, that's what I was talking about earlier. We don't weary God, and none of this wearies God. And this next passage, I think, is really neat. He gives power to the faint, okay? And to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even you shall faint and not be weary. In your lives, I know how, probably there's a story in each of our lives. And for me, like, this stuff really hit me because I grew up in a family that I never knew who God was till I was 24 years old. Living in California like that, my family was not anywhere interested in religion, and I was a pretty bad person. I was and I'm lucky I didn't end up in jail. And I was very lucky, never got arrested or anything because of the drugs and alcohol and the things that I did that Satan was trying to kill me. And it got to the point in my life where I was at a low point in my life. I was sick of it. And all my friends, they're divorcing, and it was just because that's what that kind of life does. It just destroys human beings. And I remember that was the point in my life when for some reason, my mom always had a Bible on the coffee table. We never read it, but it was there. And I remember I was just feeling really low, and I had to admit, thoughts of suicide did come into my mind. I would never have the guts to do that, but that's just how I saw life. I was truly desperate. This life does not make sense. And so I picked up that Bible, and I remember reading it, and it just felt like these words, it just like shocked me for some reason. Reading them just really impacted me. And then for some unknown reason, very soon after it, an old girlfriend became a Christian, And she called me and wanted to study with me. And so I did. And then it was history from there. Once I saw, just going through, I don't know if you remember the Jewel Miller film strips, I went through those. That worked. I was ready to go, and I knew, and it's like a light went on, like, okay, now this all makes sense, what's going on. But I know in your lives too, and see, that's why this passage is getting, that's how he is. God is looking for these people, and he wants to make himself known to them, and what he'll do for you. He's just an amazing God. But then it goes on to say, and for him who has no might, he increases strength. Even you shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. And what's another word for saying, and those who wait for the Lord? What's another word for wait? Watch. But the big word that would be going all through 1 through 39? Trust, yes. Those who, I think they're synonyms from what I understand. But those who trust in the Lord shall renew their strength. And they shall mount up with wings like eagles, and they shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not. This is an amazing promise that God gives to us, and that's why it's just so important to never give up and never. You look at your life and it's going down. God knows that. He's there, and He's going to help you. He's going to answer your prayers, and that's why we just need to wait on Him and to trust in Him. I don't know if I have this passage up. Yeah. This is a beautiful passage in 1 Thessalonians where it says, now may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely, and may your whole spirit and soul and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. He who called you is faithful. He will surely do it. This is a great, great passage there. All right. Now we're into chapter 41. And good, I'm moving along faster than I normally do, and that's good. But this is a neat passage here about what God is going to do. Okay, we change gears here a little bit. He says, listen to me in silence, O coastlands. Let the peoples renew their strength. Let them approach. Let them speak. Let us draw near for judgment. And do you know what he means when he says coastlands? You know who he's talking to? That's a synonym for, you ever heard that? The nations, the Gentile nations is who he's saying. And what he's calling out for here is, okay, come, bring your case. And that's how God is. He could talk to me. Throughout in Isaiah, we've seen that. He wants to reason with us. He wants to talk to us. And he calls out to the Gentiles. He says, bring your case to me and let's talk together and let's judge to see what's going to work, okay? So, and then it goes into this passage right here. Somebody else, Logan, would you mind reading that?
Who stirred up one from the east, whom victory meets at every step. He gives up nations before him, so that he tramples kings underfoot. He makes them like dust with his sword, like driven stubble with his bow. He pursues them and passes on safely, by paths his feet have not trod. Who has performed and done this, calling the generations from the beginning? I, the Lord, the first, and with the last, I am he.
You have any idea who he might be hinting at? Who stirred up one from the east? Who he might be talking about here? Well, he says here clearly in 44 and 45. But who was it that enabled the Jews to go back? Cyrus, yeah. So it's like hinting at Cyrus, how God is going to help him to do what God is going to do to release his people. And so he's challenging them. And then that last verse is really neat. He says, I, the Lord, the first, okay, and with the last, I am he. God is there at the first, but at the last, he's going to have people with him, and he's going to do this. I don't know, does that make sense? What he's going to do. Let's see. And again, he's just pointing out that he has the power to do this. But, okay. Now, here's how so God puts out this invitation, and here's how they respond. They say, the coastlands have seen and are afraid. The ends of the earth tremble. They have drawn near and come. Everyone helps his neighbor and says to his brother, be strong. The craftsman strengthens the goldsmith, and he who smooths with the hammer and him who strikes with the anvil, saying of the soldering, it is good. and they strengthen it with nails so that it cannot be moved. What do you think of their reply? What do you think they're saying?
Doubling down on the idols?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the idea with the goldsmiths?
Yeah, ridiculous. That's what people do. They can hear, but they decide that, you know, what I have is good enough, you know, and they actually encourage one another to be strong, you know, in their defiance of God here. And what's interesting is when we look at how ridiculous it is for us to cling to our idols, how they physically had to nail it down so it wouldn't move, you know, and all that kind of stuff. It's just silliness for us to defy God. Anyway, all right. Let's see. Rich, would you mind reading this here?
But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the offspring of Abraham, my friend, you whom I took from the ends of the earth and called from its farthest corners, saying to you, you are my servant, I have chosen you and not cast you off. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand.
Okay, there are several servants talked about here. Who do you think this servant is? What's it sound like to you?
Israel.
Israel, yeah. Sounds like the people, huh? The people in it, and us is what it is. And you see what he's saying, you know, and again, what he's going to do for us is what amazes me. You know, that he's chosen us, and he hasn't cast us off, and he wants to bring us someplace. Let's see. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. You know, and even though there's troubles and things like that, God is still there. You know, and there's nothing that can. You know, you shall seek those who continue with you, but you shall not find them. You know, God is just going to be victorious in all this. Did I go too far? Yeah. Go to the next passage here. He says, behold, all who are incensed against you shall be put to shame and confounded. Our enemies, you know, an enemy of us is an enemy of God, what he's saying. And those who strive against you shall be as nothing and shall perish. And you shall seek those who contend with you, but you shall not find them. Those who war against you shall be as nothing at all. For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not, I am the one who helps you. You know, it's an amazing picture of God. Here, all right. Let's see. Is that a different passage? Okay, fear not. Okay, now, this is interesting here. Danny, would you mind reading that?
Fear not, you worm of Jacob, you men of Israel. I am the one who helps you, declares the Lord. Your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. Behold, I make you a threshing sledge, new, sharp, and having teeth, and shall thresh the mountains and crush them, and you shall make the hills like chaff. You shall winnow them, and the wind shall carry them away, and the tempest shall scatter them. And you shall rejoice in the Lord, in the Holy One of Israel you shall glory.
Okay, does that throw you, the first verse there? You worm, Jacob. How do you explain that? What do you think, Logan?
To me, it's saying you're no better than worms now, just because you're rebelling against me, you weren't listening, you're no better than a worm in the mud.
Yes, but if you will listen, yeah, it'll be a different story. You know, and again, all flesh is like grass. That we need to know our place. You know, but if we listen, Rodney.
It's so amazing to see this where God is pleading with his people to connect with me, look to me.
Yeah.
And all the other nations pleaded with their God to pay any attention to them at all. You know, which weren't any gods. They weren't there.
Yeah.
That's what they pleaded. You remember, like, up on Mount Carmel, they're cutting themselves.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to get his attention.
Yes.
You know,
Get their God's attention. Yeah.
their God's attention when the true God is saying, please, will you just look up?
Yeah.
You know, please look.
Yeah. I know, just that message for us as Christians, to know that how much God cares for us and to be in our lives. I think it's just, it's very, very, very humbling. Let's see. Fear not, let's see, I'm the one who helps you, declares the Lord. And then this idea, behold, I make you a threshing sledge, new, sharp, and having teeth. Anybody know anything about a threshing sledge, what that was? I think it was a pretty big thing. But anybody ever study that or see that? I saw a picture of one, and what it is, it's a wooden, like a pallet, looks like a pallet or something, and then they put some metal or something on the underside of it, and then they when they throw the wheat out or whatever, they drag it around it, and it separates it, and then it can be, you know, something like that. It's a tool like that, but that's just going to make us, you know, that we are going to be, it amazes me. And you shall make the hills like chaff, you know, what he can do with us, you know, you shall winnow them and the wind shall carry them away and the tempest shall scatter them and you shall rejoice in the Lord, the Holy, you know, it's like God can do these things for us. He wants to work in our lives if we'll let him, if we'll open our hearts to him. He can do many things. Danny?
I think that, I know it was in a lot of the other prophets, there's things like mountains and hills or other nations. Do you think it's kind of what they're talking here is you could have had all these other nations that wouldn't have touched you if you just
That would have been, yeah, I think that would have been. I'd been curious about how it would have ended if they would have obeyed, you know. Have you ever thought that through, like, what if they did obey? And they really, I mean, God would have worked it, you know, out that way, but that would have been an interesting thing if they did, but well, obviously they didn't. All right, so what are we getting at here? Let's see, 17 through 20, yeah. This is kind of like what it is when we go through things, you know, and listen how God puts it. He says, when the poor and the needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue is parched with thirst, I, the Lord, will answer them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. I will open rivers on the bare heights and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land springs of water. I'll put in the wilderness the cedar, the acacia, the myrtle, and the olive, and I will set in the desert the cypress, the plane, and the pine together, that they may see and know and may consider and understand together that the hand of the Lord has done this. The Holy One of Israel has created it. And so it's like for us, whatever we go through, on the other side of that, there, you know, God is there, and He hasn't forgotten us, I think. But that's the thing we have to accept. There are going to be trials. There are going to be difficulties. There are, you know, because that's how He molds us. That's how He makes us. We go through these things, but wait. Just wait on the Lord. All right, we're almost out of time. Now the Lord, He ends this, I think this is the end of the chapter, where, no, it's not quite, but anyway, that argument from this, He said, bring it forth, bring your arguments, okay? Now He says here, set forth your case, says the Lord. Bring your proofs, says the King of Jacob. Let them bring them and tell us what is to happen. Tell us the former things, what they are, you know, that we may consider them, that we may know their outcome or declare the things to come. Tell us what is to come hereafter, that we may know that you are gods. Do good or do harm, that we may be dismayed and terrified. Behold, you are nothing, and your work is less than nothing. An abomination is he who chooses you. So this is God's conclusion of the business with the reasoning with the idols and stuff. Okay, so next week we got, let's see, we'll begin in 42, where this is the first of the suffering servant passages. There's 4 of them. And that's what I may do, is just kind of highlight those that'll get us farther through the book about this is who's going to be coming. Now we saw the Israel, the servant. Now we see God's servant here is what we'll be seeing from now on through all this stuff. So, we were really out of time. And this is where he again, the first verse there, I stirred up one from the north, he has come. Before it was from the east. Well, Cyrus did come from the north and from the east. He captured countries in there, but he's talking about Cyrus and that. So we'll start in 42 then next week. Thank you.